All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive into a really, really tragic and important case, the story of Kelsey Smith. We're basing this deep dive on an episode of the Anatomy of Murder podcast. And, I know this is something that a lot of our listeners are very interested in. We're going to really focus on Kelsey's life, the investigation into her disappearance, and the really crucial role technology played in this whole case.
Yeah, you're right. This case really captures the imagination, right? It gets to you. It gets to anybody who's interested in true crime. And I think what makes Kelsey's story so compelling is how it just sort of shatters our sense of security. That feeling that certain places are safe, especially in broad daylight, right? You go to a busy shopping center, a place we all frequent, and that's exactly where her abduction happened. So that really hits home.
Yeah, it's terrifying, right? Like you think you're safe, you're just going about your day, and then something like this happens. And Kelsey was such a vibrant young woman, just 18 years old, a recent high school graduate, and she was involved in everything: choir, band, theater, even track and field. People who knew her said she had this incredible ability to make friends wherever she went.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking to think about all the potential that she had. And on the day that she disappeared, she was simply doing something very ordinary. I mean, just shopping for an anniversary gift for her boyfriend at Target.
Yeah. It was supposed to be just another day. She even called her mom from the store to say she was leaving, but then she vanished. Her car was found later in the parking lot with her belongings still inside. But there was no sign of Kelsey. I can only imagine the panic and confusion her family must have felt.
Absolutely. It's a parent's worst nightmare. And this is where the fact that Kelsey's father, Greg, was a 16-year law enforcement veteran becomes so crucial to this whole story. He immediately knew the importance of acting fast, and he began contacting police departments, checking for accidents, anything that could explain her disappearance.
He was walking this incredibly difficult line, right? Balancing his professional training with the agonizing worry of a father searching for his daughter.
You can see that in his actions. He even had the presence of mind to tell his other daughter to make sure her boyfriend didn't touch Kelsey's car. He knew how important preserving a potential crime scene could be. That experience in law enforcement really kicked in.
It's amazing how in such a stressful situation he was able to think so clearly. So the police got involved, started their investigation. What were those early stages like?
Well, the initial investigation was very thorough, but also it was frustratingly slow. They interviewed family members, Kelsey's boyfriend, tried to eliminate any potential suspects, but there were no immediate leads.
That's that agonizing waiting game, right? Every minute must felt like an eternity for her family.
Exactly. And there was this other layer of complexity added by the technology of the time. Kelsey's cell phone was missing, which meant it could potentially hold clues to her location. But back then, accessing that kind of data due to privacy concerns was a huge hurdle.
So they knew the phone could be a vital primitive evidence, but they were stuck, waiting for legal clearance to get the information they needed.
Exactly. And while they waited, Kelsey's family wasn't just sitting around either. They launched their own search efforts, put out media appeals, distributed flyers. Hundreds of volunteers were combing the area. It was a truly community-driven effort to find her.
It's inspiring to see that kind of community response, but you mentioned technology playing a role, and I know that the security footage from Target becomes a crucial piece of the puzzle. What can you tell us about that?
It's fascinating, really. Initially, investigators spent hours poring over the footage, but they didn't notice anything unusual. Kelsey appeared to be fine, no signs of distress, and her car seemed to drive away without any indication of a struggle.
So they were looking for something, anything, that might indicate foul play, but they came up empty.
Right, but then they decided to do something a little unconventional. They blew up the footage onto a massive screen, something like 8 feet by 10 feet. And that's when they noticed a detail they'd completely missed before.
Wait, they missed something that big on the smaller screens. What was it?
Yeah, it seems incredible, right? But on that giant screen, they spotted a figure lurking in the background, a man who appeared to be following Kelsey. And then, just before her car pulls away, there's a flash of movement near her car. That was the first real evidence that Kelsey hadn't just disappeared. She had been abducted.
Oh man, that must have been just a horrifying realization for everyone. Like you said, they thought she was missing, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh no, this is way worse than we thought.
It was a crushing blow.
Right.
To go from maybe she ran into a friend, maybe there's a misunderstanding, to now we know for sure somebody took her against her will. But it also gave the investigation a new sense of urgency, Now, they weren't just looking for Kelsey, they were hunting for a kidnapper.
So what happened next? Did that crucial detail from the security footage lead them to a suspect?
It did. The police released the image of man from the target footage to the media, and the response was amazing. It turns out several people recognized him as Edwin Hall, a local resident who drove a blue pickup truck matching the one in the video.
So they had a name, a face, a vehicle. Sounds like they were closing in. What did they do with that information?
Well, here's where things take another unexpected turn. Before the police could even contact Edwin Hall, his lawyer reached out to them claiming that Hall wanted to cooperate and clear his name.
Really? That seems odd. Did he think he could just explain this away?
That's what it seemed like at first. So while detectives were preparing for this interview with Hall, they decided to send a team to surveil his house, just in case. And it turns out that was a smart move, because guess what they saw?
I have a bad feeling about this. Don't tell me he was trying to skip town.
You got it. Hall was spotted packing luggage into his car. His wife and child were already inside. It looked like he was about to make a run for it.
Well, that's a pretty clear indication that he knew he was in trouble. So what did the police do?
They acted fast. They intercepted Hall before he could get away, brought him in for questioning. But there's another heartbreaking layer to this story that we need to talk about.
I knew it. Something tells me this isn't good news. What happened?
Just an hour before Hall was brought to the police station, Kelsey's body was found.
Oh, no. After all that searching and hoping.
Yeah. The police had finally gotten access to Kelsey's cell phone location data, and within 45 minutes of receiving that information, they were able to pinpoint the last signal from her phone. It led them to a wooded area just across the state border where they found her body, concealed under some branches. A belt was still tied around her neck. The autopsy later confirmed that she had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death.
That is just awful. And knowing they were so close to getting that phone data, it makes you wonder if they could have reached her in time if they'd had access sooner.
It's a question that haunts this case. And the tragedy of Kelsey's story really highlighted the need for quicker access to this kind of information in life-threatening situations. And in fact, it directly led to the passage of the Kelsey Smith Act, which allows law enforcement to quickly obtain wireless location data in emergencies. You know, it's a testament to Kelsey's legacy that something positive came out of this horrible situation.
That's incredible. How her family was able to channel their grief into something that could potentially save other lives. But let's go back to Edwin Hall for a moment. What happened when he was brought in for questioning? Did he confess?
Initially, he stuck with the story his lawyer had presented. He claimed he was the man in the video, but he didn't know Kelsey had nothing to do with her disappearance.
Oh, come on. That's ridiculous. Did he really think anyone would buy that?
It does seem hard to believe.
Right.
He even tried to explain away the cuts and scrapes on his arms, claiming they were from yard work. But here's where things get really disturbing. When the detective showed Hall a picture of Kelsey, his response was chilling. He said, and I quote, "Oh, that girl. Yeah, I saw her. She had really nice legs."
That's just horrific. To reduce this young woman whose life he had just taken to a pair of legs, it shows a complete lack of remorse, a disturbing detachment from the gravity of his actions.
Exactly. It's a chilling glimpse into the mind of a predator, someone who objectifies and dehumanizes their victims. But thankfully, the police had more than just Hall's words to incriminate him. Remember how Greg insisted on preserving the crime scene at Kelsey's car?
Yes, he knew how important that could be, and it sounds like it really paid off.
It absolutely did. Hall's fingerprints were found on the driver's side seatbelt buckle, and DNA evidence linked him to the steering wheel. They also found a BB gun in his truck that looked like a real pistol, and it had Kelsey's DNA on the muzzle.
Oh, wow. So it seems likely that he used that to threaten her and force her to drive to that secluded area. What a terrifying experience that must have been for her.
The evidence certainly points in that direction. And to make matters even more damning, Hall's wife, seemingly unaware of the seriousness of the situation, showed up at the police station with a bag containing the clothes Hall was wearing on the day of the abduction. It was as if she was unwittingly handing them another piece of the puzzle.
It sounds like the evidence was really piling up against him. Did he finally confess to the crime?
Not right away. He seemed determined to go to trial, even with a mountain of evidence stacked against him. But then, just minutes before a hearing to change the venue of the trial, something happened that made him change his mind.
Wow. So close to going to trial, and then what happened? What made him reconsider? Yeah, it's almost like he was playing this game, like, let's see how long I can drag this out. What happened? What made him change his mind at the last minute?
Well, it seems that his lawyer had some news for him that kind of shifted his perspective a little bit. It turns out that Kelsey's family had actually been in contact with federal prosecutors.
Yeah.
And Yeah, they were considering pursuing the death penalty in this case.
Oh, wow.
So faced with that very real possibility, Hall decided to change his plea.
Yeah, it's amazing how those potential consequences really make you see things a lot more clearly all of a sudden. So what happened next? What were the terms of the plea deal?
Well, Hall agreed to plead guilty to kidnapping, sexual assault, and murder in exchange for, being spared the death penalty.
Right.
And ultimately, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
I can't even imagine what it must have been like for Kelsey's family to be in that courtroom facing the man who took her from them.
It must have been incredibly
No.
difficult. But even in the face of such unimaginable grief, Kelsey's mother showed incredible strength. During the sentencing hearing, she addressed the prosecutor directly and she said, "You fight for her as hard as she fought for her life." It's just a testament to their determination to honor Kelsey's memory and to see justice served.
That's so powerful. It really speaks to the strength of the human spirit, that ability to find a way to keep going even when faced with the worst possible circumstances. What about Hall? Did he ever express any remorse for what he did?
Not really. The detective who interrogated him said that Hall was one of the most callous individuals he'd ever encountered in his career. There was no genuine remorse, no sense of empathy for Kelsey or her family. It just seemed like he was much more concerned with saving his own skin than taking responsibility for the devastation that he had caused.
Yeah. It's just a chilling reminder that there are people out there who are capable of these just horrific acts without a shred of a conscience.
Right.
But let's shift gears for a moment here. I want to talk about the positive impact that came from this tragedy. Kelsey's family didn't let her death be in vain. They turned their grief into action.
Absolutely. They channeled their pain into something really meaningful. Remember how difficult it was to access Kelsey's cell phone location data during the investigation? Well, that experience really spurred them to action.
Right. That delay could have been critical.
Exactly. And because of that, Kelsey's family spearheaded the passage of the Kelsey Smith Act. And this act gives law enforcement the ability to quickly obtain that information in emergency situations. And in fact, it's already helped to save countless lives, which is a remarkable legacy for Kelsey.
It's amazing how they were able to take such a horrific experience and turn it into something positive, something that will continue to help others. It just speaks volumes about their strength and dedication. Is there anything else you want to share about the impact of Kelsey's story?
Yeah, in addition to the Kelsey Smith Act, Kelsey's family also established the Kelsey Smith Foundation, which is also known as Kelsey's Army. And their mission is to raise awareness about personal safety and advocate for stronger laws to protect people from violence. And they've just worked tirelessly to educate communities, empower individuals to take steps to protect themselves and others. It's truly inspiring to see how they've turned this tragedy into a force for good.
That's incredible, how they've been able to use their platform to make a difference and create something positive out of such darkness. This deep dive has been both heartbreaking and inspiring. It's a stark reminder of the importance of situational awareness, the power of technology in both solving and potentially preventing crimes, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable loss.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is this idea that we can all play a role in creating a safer world, whether it's being more aware of our surroundings, supporting organizations like Kelsey's Army, or advocating for laws that protect the vulnerable. We can all honor Kelsey's memory by taking action.
Absolutely. And remember, even in the face of unspeakable tragedy, there's always hope. And Kelsey's story is a really powerful testament to that. While we can't change the past, we can learn from it. And we can work together to prevent similar tragedies from happening in the future.